When I announced this fight analysis series I've been doing this summer, I said I needed audience participation. Well, when you don't get much, you don't just scrape the bottom of the barrel, you use the whole dang barrel itself. That being said, this should prove to be an insightful and hopefully helpful fight analysis. Welcome to Camille's Harem, everybody. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. Like nearly every cartoon from the 80s and many from the 90s as well, the Berenstain Bears is a tad darker, more mature, and more ridiculous show than it appears at first glance. If you grew up with it and you decide to rewatch the show, you realize that this is particularly true. And that experience of just going back and rewatching these old shows from the 80s and 90s is a roller coaster ride of nostalgia that most people don't talk about when you realize, holy dang, this is darker than I remember it being. But anyway, this is a fight analysis, and this video came as a recommendation from one Debbie Olson. Oh boy, I guess I'm doing this. Big Paw Bear versus Weasel McGreed. My two questions in regards to fights apply here. What is the story that is being told, and what is the purpose of this fight? The Berenstain Bears is a series about the quintessential bear family of Mama, Papa, Sister, and Brother Bear. They go from episode to episode on adventures where they learn important life lessons, to share, to be accepting of others, and especially how to avoid conflict. And yet, with that premise, this show still has some crazy violent moments. These are usually instigated by one arch Weasel McGreed, a weasel who wants to run the bears out of bear country by any means necessary, no matter how devious or disturbing. The inclusion of the greedy and unscrupulous weasels in this series is to teach that there are times when you need to take action to stop an antagonistic force or some sort of person who's just out there to cause problems in the lives of others. The show, with its ever-clever life and childhood lessons, makes a firm distinction between bullies who can be handled through friendship, understanding, and having a supportive family and the likes, and villains who harm others for much darker and greedier goals than simply attention-seeking. Otherwise, the show is musical, whimsy, and sweet in order to create an environment of learning for the young audience. The purpose of the fights between McGreed and Big Paw Bear, of which there are a few of them, is to show that things are not always as they seem. Sometimes the people we vilify in society are genuinely good and deserve a chance to prove their worth as individuals and to our society. Big Paw is a social outcast because of his hulking size, outward lack of civility, and being mentally slow. Each fight is a chance for Big Paw to prove himself and to reveal a deficiency within Bear Country's way of thinking about others. And Weasel McGreed basically exists to provide the inventive ways for these showdowns to occur. As for the conflicts between Big Paw and Weasel McGreed, there are three of particular note. The first, when the Weasels try selling Big Paw to the circus, and then when they attempt to destroy Bear Country with an earthquake, and when McGreed finally decides that he's going to brainwash Big Paw Bear into either scaring off or squashing the bears of Bear Country. If this channel were like Screw Attack or Film Theory, I would calculate Big Paw's strength in being able to counter a magnitude 8 earthquake, and also marvel at the durability of the trees he uses. However, this is nothing more than fluff to make the conflict cool and engaging for the audience. Remember, the Berenstain Bears are all about teaching lessons. For this analysis, I will look at the instance when Big Paw was hypnotized to squash the bears. During mosquito season, Big Paw is living it up with his banjo on the mountains and swatting the little bloodsuckers. Ravaged Ralph, a hoodlum, a little crony of McGreed, and the Archweasel himself come to Big Paw saying that they can help him with singing lessons. It turns out to be nothing more than a fiendish weasel plot to hypnotize the brutish bear into thinking that all of the bears are actually mosquitoes. And if this was a bona fide way of using hypnotism, that would be really scary. But anyway, McGreed then commands that Big Paw should squash all of these big mosquitoes, and shows him pictures of the neighboring bears down in the valley. Big Paw then takes up his banjo and declares that he will get rid of the mosquitoes. But just then, Brother and Sister Bear, along with their cousin Freddy, show up. Throughout the course of this episode, they've had a bad feeling that the Weasels might be up to something, and by following Ralph around, they've uncovered the plan. They stop the potential rampage of a Superman-strong grizzly by reminding him that, well, he loves music, and even more importantly, he loves children. And they do so by singing his little strumming song from earlier in the episode. We love to sing, sing-a-ling. Big Paw snaps out of it and chases the villains away. The day is saved! With the episodic nature of the series and its tendency towards lessons rather than any kind of overarching plot, there's really no way of gauging the consequences of this particular encounter. Instead, it all comes back to the moral of the story. You can't judge people by their appearance alone. It is their actions and intents that make them who they are. The Cubs and Big Paw are the heroes. The villains are cowards who run and hide when they don't get their way. This is a very kid-friendly way of approaching the subject of violence and good versus evil. And while adults might scoff because they can see the complexity of the situations and details that children are probably not able to process, it is a narrative that is understandable to a child. And just maybe, we adults should also step back and try to see things in a more simple and good-natured way. The best writing advice I can give from this very short standoff is, well, this. Battles resound with the reader the most when they have a deeper purpose. Throwaway action, fun fights, and fluff and stuff like that is all good and entertaining, but it should not be the meat of your story. Character arcs, messages of morals and ideology, gaining insight into others, or highlighting a theme within a fight makes those conflicts more memorable and meaningful to the audience. You want to make sure that your action moments, especially your big moments of action, really stick with the reader, and you do that the best by conveying a message with that action sequence. Another bit of advice is this. If you are writing a story for a younger audience, your action scenes and fights will tend to be shorter. Not because kids can't handle action, but because the mechanics of those stories are not tailored to something drawn out or overly violent. You can definitely try to experiment there if you wish, but because most kids' tales are trying to convey a message to the group and to an audience that will not overanalyze or pick apart every detail, you need to address your themes at the same level that the kids are at and address it kind of at their speed of understanding. Lastly, epic action set pieces are, well, wonderful. I personally enjoy them. But what a fight really needs is heart and meaning. The very soul of why this fight is happening. Some stories require a drawn-out battle in order to convey the deeper message, in order to let the spirit and the emotions of these characters really sink in, whereas other fights just need something more speedy and to the point in order to really convey the message or the heart that you wish your audience to get out of this. Carefully consider where your fights fall on that spectrum and plan accordingly. Writing for a younger audience is not easy. It takes an understanding of what will be appealing to them and what they can identify with, and you combine that then with a story that is exciting and engaging. Though the 80s Berenstain Bears might seem like a very dated piece of entertainment, watching those episodes as of today, there's no denying that they were well tailored and written very well for a younger audience. Those messages are still things that kids today will recognize, that will resonate with them, and that they will enjoy. It's pretty interesting to see how even a dated piece of entertainment that wishes to convey certain morals can still work even 30 years afterwards. And that's kind of what you want to go with if you are looking to write a story for kids. You're looking for something that will end up being more timeless. And also the same if you're here writing fights. You want your fights to be timeless, and so you got to write them well. Well, thanks for watching this fight analysis, and if you're interested in more insight, writing advice, or good times with the Harem, please check out our podcast, Camille's Harem, on Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play. We also have other goodies for you to check out on our Tumblr and Pinterest, and we also have discussions on our Reddit page. And because we love doing epic readings of terrible fanfics, please send us links to those awful gems you found out there, and we'll read them. Just send us the links via our Twitter at Camille's Harem. And until next time, tschüss.